Hi and welcome to LEGO BUILDZ. Over the next few weeks I'll be showing you my display that I built for the Christchurch Brick Show for 2019. It didn't take me very long to figure out what I wanted to do. For a long time now I've wanted to recreate some scenes from the James Bond films. And once I fleshed out the idea a bit more, it became obvious that what I needed to do was try and recreate one scene from each of the actors' eras. When it came to deciding what scenes to do, some were more obvious than others. But I will give you my thoughts on that when I talk about each of the scenes that I built. So first up, we've probably got one of the most iconic scenes in James Bond history, and that is the classic laser scene from the 1964 Sean Connery Bond film, Goldfinger. For me, this was probably the most obvious choice out of all of the films. It screams James Bond, it's got some really cool elements to it. And it has always been one of my favourite scenes of the Bond series. This isn't the first time I've tried to recreate this scene out of Lego. I entered a competition back in 2014 which you had to build, I think it was a 16 by 16 base, so I was really limited by those dimensions what I could do. I was really happy with what I'd done at the time, but when I came around to designing it again, I was really pushing for just more realism and detail, trying to get the proportions of the scene closer to the film. You know, just by having that extra amount of space, I was able to get more technicians into the control room and try and build the control room more accurately with the tape machines and all the computers on the background wall. One of the things that I really wanted to try and improve from my previous build of the Goldfinger scene was trying to get the minifigures to look more like their on-screen representations. One in particular I wanted to try and improve on was Mr. Ling, the scientist. Up in the control room there, I really think that needs a lot better. And I've also got the Goldfinger's sort of minions in their blue colours, which is obviously the Bespin Guard from the Star Wars Cloud City sets. That's a really cool addition because I didn't have those beforehand, and it just is, it's quite cool to have better looking minifigures. Another point of difference to the previous build that I'd done of this scene is really just tried to make it a bit more interesting. So I've got the addition of lights that actually work, which also helps give a bit of depth in the control room because it's so dark in there. By having those lights in there, it really just gives it another angle, another dimension. It's just easier to see the minifigures as well, but you know, in the actual scene there were lights in there, so it would make sense to try and light it accordingly. Once I'd built the first sort of reimagining of this scene, I wondered whether I could motorize the laser. So I spent a few nights trying to figure out what I was going to do. My initial thought was it'd be easy enough to do. I'll just throw the tiny little micro motor that I've got in my big Technic space shuttle, the one that winds out the satellite. I thought that would be slow enough just to slowly move the laser in above as it does in the film. However, my initial thoughts were wrong, and I had to go back to the drawing board. It was particularly fast, as you can see in this video here. The laser moves so fast, and I didn't have any other way to control the speed of this micromotor. As I said, I thought it was going to move slowly enough. But as I found out, if you've got a slow moving motor hooked up to a long arm, the longer the arm, the more the movement is accentuated. So even though the motor was only moving quite slowly, once you got the laser at the other end of that arm, it was still moving quite fast. So I had to go back to the drawing board and really gear down the movement of that motor. So after a couple of nights of tinkering, I finally came up with a concept that worked quite well. So in between the micro motor, I've got a combination of gears and then finally running a pulley that runs the axle that the laser's hooked up to. And even though it seems to pull really slowly, it's perfect for the movement of the laser, as you can see here. So once I got the movement organised on the laser, then I could control it to move it back and forward within the scene, which a lot of people at the brick show really appreciated. I was really happy with the outcome, and it just gave it a little something more than just it being a static model. I'm really happy with how Bond on the laser table turned out. Obviously Sean Connery didn't look so panicked in the film, but I thought it would be quite funny to give Bond Emmett's face from when he gets lasered in the Lego movie. It's just a little bit of a reference to that. Goldfinger's quite good. Obviously he's got a black suit on and he hasn't got his trademark tuxedo. Unfortunately I didn't have any minifigure bodies that looked anywhere like that. A nice little smile on there, thinking he's got the upper hand. Overall, this is probably one of my favourite builds that I've done for the display this year. It's just quintessential Bond, and everything that was great about 60s Bond. It's just got a really cool 60s vibe to it. So that wraps up this week's video. But James Bond will return next week in a scene from George Lazenby's 1969 Bond film on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you for watching LEGO BUILDZ. We really appreciate all of your support. If you have enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on the next video. You can now support LEGO BUILDZ on Patreon. If this is something that you would like to do, please click the link in the description below to follow to our Patreon page. LEGO BUILDZ is now also on Instagram and Twitter. Follow us to take a look behind the scenes of LEGO BUILDZ and what we're currently working on.